Hello, Packer Nation, and welcome into today's episode of Pack-A-Day via YouTube. I am obviously not Andy Herman. I will be your host today, going solo. Jen Mackie here, and I figured with it just being me in the studio today, I would kind of use this opportunity to just talk a little bit about the upcoming game, which actually happens just 20 minutes south of me. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of use today's video. Obviously, there's been a lot of fantastic breakdowns from a lot of fantastic people, but being a Minnesotan Packers fan, I thought that this would be fun to just kind of talk about what it's been like growing up here, kind of the rivalry and kind of just the personal stuff that goes with it here in enemy territory. So, I guess to just kind of get started, for those who don't know, I am from Minnesota. I was born here, but raised as a Wisconsinite. So grew up 20 minutes north of the Twin Cities in Vikings territory as a Packers fan. Obviously, it's been kind of an interesting life growing up, when you're a kid and you don't really cheer for the same teams as your friends or your classmates. It can lead to a little bit of taunting and teasing. I know it was kind of tough when I was younger, just, you know, trying to wear green and gold, and everybody kind of picks on you a little bit because you're not cheering for the home state team. Quickly grew up and realized that it was obviously better to root for the Packers, being that they were the winning team and the Vikings have nothing to show for their franchise history aside from an empty trophy case. So I was able to kind of overcome all that teasing and taunting from my childhood. And obviously, here I am today, doing some Packers work. The bullying did not work when I was younger. Here I am, strong as ever. So these actually do end up being two of my favorite weeks in the regular season, just because I do take them so personally. Um, it, yeah, I mean, growing up here, it's obviously very different. And I know that the Packers' biggest rival is the Bears. That is no secret, but these are just kind of extra personal weeks to me because I'm from here. I have a lot of friends here. This is where I grew up. So everybody kind of knows that I am the Packer girl around here. And it just kind of, it makes for a lot of interesting stories growing up. And I'm sure people who are from here who are also Packers fans can definitely relate to these kinds of stories, or fans who live in other rivalry areas, they can definitely relate to this kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I have spent all my life here, aside from the 4 years that I actually did live in Green Bay when I was going to UW Green Bay to get my Bachelor's of Science degree. It was always funny though when I was little and I'd kind of go to school, back when I was little, wearing the Brett Favre jersey, and people would always tell me to move back to Wisconsin, but I am from here. I've never been from Wisconsin. I just have family. My dad is actually from Madison, which is how I ended up being a Packers fan. And my mom is from Illinois. So it was either one or the other. It was either Packers or Bears. And I am very thankful every day that my dad won that battle, because life would have been a lot worse if I was a Bears fan, and that's for sure. So I have been a Packers fan my whole life, despite living here in Minnesota. And I remember from a young age, I remember this moment of my life very vividly, being in the kitchen. And I was probably I was definitely in elementary school. I'm not entirely sure how old I was, but definitely elementary school. So young enough where what happened left a little bit of a mark on me. But I was grabbing something out of the fridge, and my dad was in the living room, and he's just kind of enjoying himself watching TV, sitting back in the recliner. And I kind of, without, he's in the other room, but you can kind of see him. And I'm like, Dad, why are we Packers fans? Kind of wondering, I do live in Minnesota. Why am I not a Vikings fan? And I remember him telling me, basically, if I ever cheer for the Vikings, I will be out on the streets by myself. He will disown me and never question it again. He got that through my mind very quickly. We do not root for the Vikings around here. And I'm very thankful that he was so stern with me, because never questioned again. And to this day, I don't wear purple. I make sure that the colors purple and yellow are never touching in my presence, whether it's markers, crayons. foods like Skittles, like candy, stuff like that. I'm very weird about it. I do not let those colors into my life in that kind of way. It's just weird things like that. And there were always things that, growing up, there's always all these bets that go along with being a Packers fan here in enemy territory. When I was playing basketball when I was younger, we would do these raffles, and my basketball coach, he said he will buy $100 worth of raffle tickets if he could put a Vikings ornament on our Christmas tree. And I remember calling my dad, asking him, this was for a really good cause. And I had to get the okay for our basketball coach to put such an ugly figurine on our tree, and it was okayed. We did have this plan. We were gonna let him be the first one to put an ornament on, and we were gonna twist the tree so you couldn't see it. And he ended up bringing it to he brought it to basketball practice, and he actually dropped it. It broke, never made it onto the tree. So thankfully, that was not something we had to deal with. We were still able to raise the money, but it's just kind of like little things like that throughout my life has just been, a very unique relationship that I have with Vikings fans here. And obviously, around these times, I make fun of them a lot. They have that little brother syndrome because obviously Packers and Bears are the greatest rival in sports, like obviously football, but possibly sports overall. So the Vikings, it's always amusing to me. They obviously view us as their biggest rival, but they're more of like that little brother to us, and they do get that little brother syndrome. And anytime anything happens, Vikings fans are always very quick to reach out. So in those moments where, maybe something great didn't happen between a Packers Vikings game, I usually have to silence my phone, stay off social media, just avoid all the messages coming through because they come in really fast. And over time, they've kind of simmered down a little bit. But yeah, this is just kind of a very small sample size of kind of what it's like to be in enemy territory and be kind of from here. And I really do know that there's a lot of people who can relate to this. And the thing about being a Packers fan here in Minnesota is that when we find another, it's kind of like this unspoken bond you create with other Packers fans here in Minnesota. I know, especially in high school, when I really did start to get into football and really kind of dive deeper into the game and understand it more, those Monday mornings were very crucial to find those other Packers fans, especially after a loss, and just kind of consoling each other and have each other's backs and, have to face all the Vikings fans. It was always really tough. High school is already tough enough, but when you're into sports like that, it definitely makes for an interesting extra little spicy rivalry. So even to this day, some of those folks who were kind of like my Monday morning saviors after Packers games, they do still kind of keep in contact. They'll interact with my Twitter a little bit, which I think is funny. And yeah, it's just kind of those unspoken bonds that are created over time. Yeah, I do. I mean, it is really fun though. I did love living in Green Bay, but I do love it here in Minnesota, even if it's a lot of ugly purple everywhere and having to hear all these Skol chants. And I mean, that horn is my least favorite sound in the entire world. But being the competitive person that I am, it definitely makes for a thrilling 2 weeks. And then if they do ever meet in playoffs, it's just that little extra pizzazz of the year. So I do get a lot of rise out of these weeks. I start to get a little bit cockier than usual. I love to kind of talk a big game, and it's just kind of the way it is. And you do find those realistic Vikings fans who it's not even fun because they know that, at this point we're playing the Vikings so late in the season that they've already kind of given up hope, and you can't really trash talk them a little bit because they already understand where their season's at. They're accepting being a 500 team, and you try and poke fun at them and they've already given up. And sometimes it's like that even in week 2 games. But yeah, it's just it's a lot of fun, and it's very interesting. And obviously, I take these games a little bit more personally. Like I said, obviously I know Bears are the bigger rival with the Packers. And nobody ever talks about the Lions because, the Lions are the Lions. But for me, somebody who is from this area and living so close to the city, so, the Vikings play 20 minutes from my house. And obviously you kind of look at the way I live. It's something different, but also it kind of made me realize when I moved to Green Bay, Minnesota doesn't embody football the way that Green Bay does. And I think that was something that I really appreciated when I did live in Green Bay because, you kind of go places here in Minnesota and really, unless it's a sports bar, it's not, this isn't football territory. Obviously, state of hockey, that's a big thing. But when you're in Green Bay and you're in Wisconsin, it's like, especially Green Bay, no matter where you go, you can feel the presence of that football team and the love and all that. And Minnesota just doesn't have it here. So it made me really thankful when I did live in Green Bay to be able to feel that love for football no matter where I was in that city. And I mean, then obviously I did end up moving back here. Like I said, I do love Minnesota despite that team of purple and all that stuff. But yeah, it's just this is always one of my favorite weeks of the year. There's just a lot of personal rivalry that goes in with it. And, I'm really looking forward to this year, especially. I know US Bank is a really tough place to play. So this week is going to be a really exciting one. I think, Packers defense is stepping up a lot. And I think that presents them with different opportunities than they maybe had in the past playing here. Shutting down Dalvin Cook is always top priority, it seems like. And this defense has really proven itself. And, Kirk Cousins, somebody who, love to make fun of him, especially, I talk a big game when it comes to the Vikings. I have no problem chirping at Kirk Cousins a little bit, but statistically, he is having not a horrible year. But I do think that this Packers defense is going to show them what's up a little bit and create some pressure, even though they're obviously missing some pieces. This is going to be another adversity week for the Packers. But this defense has been so impressive that the Vikings haven't seen anything like this from the Packers in a while, and they're going to be really surprised with what's thrown at Kirk Cousins and their ability, I think, to be able to shut down Dalvin Cook a little bit more. And if they can make Kirk Cousins throw, that creates opportunities for these DBs. And if you can pressure him and kind of get him off his game a little bit, I don't see why Kirk Cousins can't come in this game and throw one or two picks to our DBs. Like, maybe Stoke gets one. Never know what Kevin King's going to do. There's just so many opportunities, and it depends on the schemes that they're going to run. But, this defense, this Packers defense versus this Vikings offense doesn't scare me in the slightest anymore. Dalvin Cook, obviously last year there was a couple, there was that one game where it was kind of just the Dalvin Cook show. And, obviously those games, I hear a lot from everybody, and I have to see it on the news, read it in the newspapers, hear a little bit about it at work. Coworkers pull me aside. They want to talk about the game and just kind of rub my nose in it a little bit. So I would love for Packers defense to just come in and put a stop to Dalvin Cook and this offense. I don't think, it's not going to be another shutout. This is going to be a tough divisional game, even though it kind of feels like the kind of game where you think the Packers could really blow them out of the water. It's going to be kind of a down to the wire game, I think. And this Packers offense, obviously they're moving a little bit slower, but the pieces are there. And this Vikings defense is usually pretty good. So it's going to be a really interesting matchup, especially their front seven versus Packers offensive line. There's just going to be a lot of really good matchups. But I think that, even without Aaron Jones, talking a lot about how Dalvin Cook needs to be stopped. Well, the Vikings have to worry about stopping A.J. Dillon too. So I think that this is going to be another adversity week. I feel like, at this point, that's an evergreen saying for the Packers. Next man up, adversity week, just kind of battling through everything that's going on. And the Vikings have had to battle through their fair share too, but obviously when they have to fight their adversity, they're not coming out with the wins. So this is going to be a really tough one at US Bank, but there's a lot riding on this game for me personally, and that's why I love these weeks. And I hope that you guys really enjoyed kind of getting to hear just, I have so many stories where if you ever just want to ask me stories about what it's like here, I could give you so many. And these weeks are always just so fun, and I'm really hoping come Monday morning I get to walk into work and rep my green and yellow and go in there with a big grin on my face, knowing that my bragging rights have been renewed until whenever. I can't even remember the next time they play. I'm just so focused on this week, but I would rather have that than walking into work kind of, avoiding. I have very specific coworkers who, when things aren't going right for the Packers, I will go out of my way to avoid them. But I work directly with one of the said Vikings fans, so I know that I really need this win for personal reasons. But obviously, this is important because the Packers are very close to clinching the division at this point. There's so many games ahead that these divisional wins are extra important, especially in a year where the number one seed is extra important too. Clinching this early is going to relieve some of that pressure, and then you can kind of focus on the next thing. So yeah, these games, there's a lot that goes into this game, obviously divisional stuff and seeding and all that. These weeks get me so excited. I wish I could explain it better, but just the way that it fills my soul up when these weeks come around, it's almost like I get Christmas twice a year. It's just a matter of am I getting presents or am I getting coal? I don't know. It's really going to be a gritty game. I think there's a lot of factors going into this game. Obviously, it's not sounding like David Bakhtiari will be in. Lazard being hurt. There's just so much that is going into this game, but the Packers have shown us all year that adversity is nothing for them. So I think that even though US Bank is a really tough place to play, there is still opportunity for them to walk away with a win. And I would love nothing more than that, for them to come into my home state and just get the W against the Vikings. Thank you so much again for tuning into today's Pack-A-Day. We will have another one tomorrow, so be sure to tune in. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to everything Pack-A-Day. You can find me on Twitter at BigMac_4. And as always, go Pack Go and F the Vikings.